Welcome back, everybody. It certainly is tough times out there when it comes to the state of the economy. A lot of people are struggling to pay their bills. What we're seeing when we look at any kind of article or any kind of information regarding people struggling with debt, we see that more and more as the months go on. A lot of people are feeling the pinch more and more. We're now seeing data suggesting that 70% of Americans are financially unhealthy, with up to 36.4% of households reported having a hard time paying the bills, and this was back in April of 2024. As the situation continues to essentially evolve, this is likely to get worse, and the data from now is probably going to be even worse than this. Anyway, this brings us on to a topic for today's video. With the cost of living being so high and prices increasing, a lot of people have a sentiment perhaps quite like this, saying that Starbucks is a waste of money and time. Their coffee is extremely expensive when you compare it to making it yourself, and the truth is, even compared to a lot of other coffee options, their coffee is very expensive. The lines are often ridiculous, especially in the mornings. The coffee is mediocre at best unless you add 1,000 calories and 80 grams of sugar. That seems to be the real appeal of it anyway. Drinking a $10 coffee or milkshake for breakfast, and essentially it has half of your calories in for the whole day. And this is somewhat true, right? There's a lot of truth to this. A lot of people do subscribe to the idea of picking up a coffee on their average day-to-day, maybe on their way to and from work, but a lot more people, and a lot of people are now being forced to, whether they like it or not, ask where it is worth saving money. Ask where the efficiencies can be made. And again, Starbucks is certainly a non-essential service. So perhaps as the economy starts to become more and more tight, it's no surprise that we're seeing articles like this coming out. As Starbucks begins to lay off workers, we're seeing 1,100 corporate employees being laid off as the coffee chain streamlines. So like a lot of the companies, we're seeing this marketed as a streamlining effect. So, Starbucks plans to lay off 1,100 employees globally as new chairman and CEO Brian Niccol, I believe it is, streamlines operations. In a letter to employees released on Monday, and this was published in February, he said that the company will inform its employees who are being laid off by mid-Tuesday. So, again, this is being marketed in a certain way. Our intent is to operate more efficiently and increase accountability, reduce complexity, and drive better integration. Starbucks has 16,000 corporate support employees worldwide, but that includes some employees who aren't impacted, like roasting warehouse staff, baristas, and people in the company store. And these make up around 361,000 employees worldwide. They are not included in the layoffs. And I think that is actually quite telling. I think that says a lot about the situation. Just like a lot of these companies that we look at, it's not perhaps the lower level workers that are going, it's the middle/upper management tiers. And it's interesting because that kind of speaks a lot about the way that a lot of these businesses are moving. It speaks a lot about the way that the economy is moving. It speaks a lot about the way a lot of people are essentially thinking, right? So what I'm saying here is this is now affecting the corporate side of things. It's affecting the higher end, if you will, employees. And that's really interesting to take into consideration. Anyway, coming into this week, or the past couple days, the Starbucks CEO has a tough message for employees after the layoffs. The CEO is adding pressure on employees amid recent declines in sales. So, again, it's becoming inevitable. These companies have to, at some point, acknowledge that this is a broader trend. So the CEO, and the former CEO of Chipotle as well, is doubling down on his efforts to revamp the coffee chain as it struggles to attract customers back into its stores. Again, over the past year, Starbucks sales have struggled, and this is due to a number of factors, including menu price increases and a consumer boycott. Now again, we can talk about that part of things, but the bit that I am most interested in, or the bit that I think is worth focusing on, is these price rises, right? There becomes a point where people either don't want to go anymore, they don't think it's good value, or they simply can't afford to. And Starbucks operating income, which is the company's profit after expenses, decreased by 22% year over year. So it's inevitable, right? It's inevitable. If they want to maintain or grow profits, or at least reduce losses, they need to think about where their biggest expenses are. And unfortunately, that's going to be in a lot of workers. Workers are expensive, and especially a lot of these management employees. The truth is, they can't do it without the floor staff on the ground, right? The people making the coffee, the people sweeping the floors. But a lot of these managers, perhaps due to AI, perhaps due to overhiring throughout the pandemic, these are the people in a lot of the companies that we're seeing going. And this is really interesting because, the minimum wage jobs, the lower end jobs are still there, but what we're seeing more and more is the perhaps more traditional high paying or stable jobs. Well, they're not really that anymore. There's kind of a price war knocking wages down. On top of that, we're seeing these workers in a lot of places being unable to find jobs, or in some instances even being laid off. Let me know what you think to this one, guys. Of course, it's another interesting and telling story as to what we're seeing in the economy today. Thank you for watching, and I hope I'll see you again soon. Goodbye.